For the longest time, I didn't think my personal stories were worth sharing. I was good at growing businesses, yes. I knew some damn good strategies, yes. I knew how to make a business profitable, sure. But when it came to my own stories, I didn't see the value. I didn't think they belonged in my marketing. They felt ordinary, maybe even a little irrelevant, until one day I started sharing them. Not perfectly, not always confidently, but I shared them anyway. And that changed everything. Hey there, Susie here. You might not guess this about me because I'm quite visible across various social media platforms, but I am an introvert at heart. And sharing openly and vulnerably is something I find challenging, and I know I'm not alone. So for the longest time, I did not share. I did not share my personal stories. I kept business, strictly business. Until I realized that the women that I work with, they don't want a perfect idol to look up to and to mimic. People want to feel and hear and see the humanity in those who are their business coaches, their mentors, those that they take advice from. And eventually, when I did start opening up, sharing what I'd been through personally and professionally and the strategies I used to overcome the challenges, I saw that connection spark into place. Stories are a core part of being human, and they have a place in your business as well. So today we are talking about the power of telling your story and how to strategically draw from your own experiences without oversharing or feeling like you have to bear it all, for the purpose of connecting with your audience. And to walk us through this topic, I've brought in someone who knows storytelling inside and out. Monica Rosenfeld is the co-founder of Stories That Stir Global. Now, this is an in-person storytelling event concept that she created after running her award-winning PR agency for 22 years. And her events are designed to break down barriers, to stir up conversations, and to inspire positive change. And her mission is to unleash the often underused storytelling superpower of business owners like you, of corporate executives, of sales teams, of average humans who want to create positive change in the world. And here's the thing about Monica. She is able to bring out the bits of gold in anyone's story. She is able to help people share authentically in a way that inspires audiences and motivates action within them. So there is no one better to discuss how you can incorporate storytelling into your business, because even if you think you don't have any stories to tell, let me tell you, you do. And Monica can help you bring them out and make them shine. So let's welcome Monica to the show. Hey, Monica, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Susie. Amazing to be here.
I'm excited to talk about stories, well, that you live in, and especially the more real, raw, vulnerable human stories. Tell us, why is it that those sort of stories create a connection between people?
Well, there's actually a scientific reason why we feel more connected when we're listening to someone's raw and personal story. What's really interesting is what is happening in the brain and body. And we've had neuroscientists who have done experiments, which is fantastic because it means that I don't need to hook electrodes up to people. There's one neuroscientist that I'm very grateful for who did an experiment where he got a presenter to speak about a topic that he was expert in and a whole lot of audience members who were interested in that topic. And he put electrodes on the brain of the presenter and the audience members. And he instructed the presenter to start the presentation just talking about the topic of expertise. And then within 5 minutes, move it into his raw and personal story about why he's so passionate about this topic. And when they looked at the brain waves later, what they found was when he started talking about his topic of expertise, you know, everyone's brain waves was doing something different. You know, a whole lot of them would have been listening. Some would have been thinking about what they're having for lunch, or a call they have to make that afternoon. But a really interesting thing happened. When he started talking about his raw and personal story, everyone's brain started synchronizing very. And this is the scientific explanation behind why we feel that connection when we're listening to someone's personal story. And that goes for whether it's one-on-one with a good friend that you're listening to, or whether you're on a stage and you're sharing a story and everyone's leaning in and listening, or whether you're sharing to a team. So that's the first part. The second part, which is I find equally as fascinating, is what happens to the hormones in your body when you're listening to different parts of a story. So when someone is sharing their vulnerability, you get the distress hormone, which is cortisol, spike up. So suddenly you're feeling this distress with them. And then they take you through a transformation of how their vulnerability transformed into something else that, they're doing something amazing now. Oxytocin is released. And Paul J. Zak did some experiments in his lab. And what he found was the combination of oxytocin and cortisol results in a change of behavior. So he did experiments showing that when people listened to a story about some childhood, a dad and his child who was ill and died of an illness, people actually donated more to a childhood charity after listening to that story. And the other two hormones that are really big are dopamine. So dopamine makes us alert and interested. And that happens with sort of plot twists and, twists and turns in the story. And lastly, endorphins make us feel open and happy, ready to learn and open. And a lot of people think of endorphins when it comes to exercise. You also release endorphins by laughing. So if you can just have a bit of humor in your story, it doesn't have to be, you don't have to be a stand-up comic. People don't have to be rolling down the aisles in tears with laughter. Even sort of a little chuckle on the inside, with a resting bitch face can do the trick to make people feel open and connected and change behavior based on the hormones that are traveling through their body.
Who knew? I didn't know all that was going on inside of listening to a story or sharing a story. That's fascinating. I love that. Thank you so much. You and I caught up recently, and one of the stories that you shared with me that has kind of stayed with me was that you said sometimes the stories we tell ourselves can become a kind of prison. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, there are stories that you share with others outwardly, and they're really great to share. But I believe as we are born and go through our lives, we're born into the society, our family, religion, or whatever it is, we get told things and we're programmed in a way. And as we grow up, we're born a completely blank slate where, we've just got all this infinite potential. And then one things will happen in your life. Like a teacher will tell you you're not good at maths. And then your mum is short-tempered one day and she tells you you'll account for nothing. And, she didn't mean it, but these stories get implanted in our heads. And they become what form our limiting beliefs and the stories that just loop and loop around our subconscious. And so I believe that each of those unconscious beliefs and stories becomes another prison bar. So I feel that it's really important that if you want to live a life where you're thriving, you actually look at the stories that you are telling yourself. And sometimes it's unconscious. So you've really got to sort of delve in and observe yourself and be very aware. And then you can actually consciously rewrite your story. So let's say a teacher said you were crap at art, and so from that moment on you thought you're not creative. Your older person self can go back to that time where you were told that and really rationalize, well, actually, I'm not that bad at art. Or even if art isn't my favorite thing, and this is my story, by the way, I'm not good at art and I was always told I was bad at it. I don't blame my teachers because I was, but that made me creative. So my life, I grew up thinking I'm not creative, I'm bad at art. And I've now rewritten that story to say, actually, I'm extremely creative. I'm really good at, writing and coming up with different ideas and acting out certain things. And I love being on stage. So I have consciously rewritten that story that I'm not creative to I'm extremely creative. So, there's the stories we tell ourselves that can hold us back. And then the stories we share that have a completely different purpose for ourselves and others. But now that we're on this topic, one story that a lot of people are telling themselves is that they're not interesting and that they don't have a story to share. And why would anyone want to listen to me?
No.
That is just not true. And that is a story that I'd like everyone to rewrite starting from now.
Okay. Order issued. And I know that's the work that you do inside of the masterclasses that you present, and that you can support people in that way. Women listening to this show are business owners, and I know when I look out in the world of socials, when I look out at the emails I pay attention to or the websites that have me lean in, usually someone's telling a story. Yes. That I can relate to, where I can see myself in them, or that I know that they're a guide that can take me where I want to go. And yet this idea of storytelling, people have probably heard before, but I want to come at it from your perspective and how our stories can actually help us cut through the noise. And I know where women get scared is they don't want their personal life out there. They don't want their wounds exposed. But we know that authenticity helps us stand out. So let's talk about that first. How can we have our storytelling cut through the noise?
Yes. Okay. I love this question because it's so important for people to understand in business. So I want you to imagine LinkedIn profiles, right? Say you're looking for a service. Let's say you're looking for a social media manager. There's like millions of them out there. And you go to 5 different LinkedIn profiles, and they're all telling you what they do, how they do, and all their wonderful experience. They're all saying the same thing because they're all the same thing, and you're like, I wouldn't have a clue who to choose. And then you go to one who shares their story around why they're so passionate about social media. And it's not just a boring, it's not just a story like, oh, I just love social media and that's why I did it. They've actually dug deep into their past, and they might have come up, their story might be something like social media changed their life, because when they were feeling down and out and depressed, they found this social media platform that really got them out of their slump, and now they want to help other people, do the same in sharing their magic through socials. So it's really, we don't purchase from resumes. We don't just want a resume. We want to know the human being behind the business. And if the business owner has the courage to just share a bit of themselves, they're the ones that are going to get the cut through over everyone else that's just talking about, features and benefits, and not, letting people into their world and into their why. And the thing is, Simon Sinek has already, shared why knowing your why is so important. And I just want to take that a step further and saying that how you share your why is important, and sharing your why in the form of a personal story is what actually gets cut through. And as you said, Susie, when you listen to a story, you're thinking, oh, I resonate with that. I resonate with that. And what happens is when we're listening to, watching, or reading a story, we're transposing our story over theirs. So it's not actually even about your story. Everyone's walking around beacons of, I'm the center of the universe, I'm the center of the universe. So we're connecting to you. So as you're sharing something about yourself, I'm connecting to you, and I'm going, oh, I remember when I felt like that, and this and that, and that's what makes me feel drawn to speak to you, as opposed to just someone who's listed a whole bunch of experience and how they help people.
I'm going to go just a little further on this, and I may or may not be talking about myself here, but for the women in our community who are leaders, and they lead teams and they lead communities, and the idea of showing their vulnerability has them think that they're going to come down a few pegs in the eyes of their clients. Is there a way to show up as you, tell your story, and not demote yourself in the eyes of your clients? Yeah.
Okay, so what I'm talking about is definitely not demoting yourself. And one of the exercises I do with people who come to my masterclass, we have a story mining exercise. So what it is, and I love explaining it in terms of Lego. If we're going to make a Lego building with 25 bricks, and it's going to be such a gorgeous Lego building that everyone that walks past is going to look at it and go, wow. You cannot start with 30 bricks because the story, the building, we don't have enough choice, so it's probably not going to be a very attractive building that gets our attention. We want to start with 120 bricks.
Right.
So that we can pick the 25 bricks that's going to create that story. So in the story mining exercise, I get people out of their head space into their heart and gut space through a relaxation exercise. And then I give them just 5 minutes to write things that have shaped me from zero till now. And everyone's shocked, like 5 minutes, but then they start automatic writing and in point form, blah, 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 blah. Whatever doesn't come out then, and, in the hour or so later as they, things can still land, is not relevant. And then what happens is, from all of the gold that they've dug out, we can pick and choose what they want to share. So they might not want to share when they got naked, drunk, and ran around, the block. They might not want to share the fact that their dad was an alcoholic and left them, but there will always be something that they can find to just share a little bit of vulnerability. To give you an example, so my own story, I've got a lot of stuff in my past, as we all do, and I don't mind sharing now in this context. I had an eating disorder. I had all kinds of things happen as a youth. But the story that I share a lot of the time is that I was born into a family that were very opinionated, and they had a lot of opinions that I didn't really necessarily agree with. They were very conservative, and I've always been I call it the white sheep of the family. And quite often sitting around the dinner table, I would be sharing a story or sharing my views and be shut down and humiliated and felt to be embarrassed. And so as a result, I stopped sharing and I stopped being able to express. And that lasted for a very long time until later on in my life, I actually, discovered stand-up comedy and got into all that, and it helped me self-express. So as you can see in that story, I'm not sharing deep, dark trauma, just from all the story mining things, all the bricks that I threw out while I was doing the story mining, chose this one to focus on in order to get that connection.
Very good. Thank you for sharing all that. You see people get up on stage all the time, every month at your events, and share deep personal stories. What would you say makes a story magnetic versus one that's kind of ho-hum, like that was interesting, but it didn't rock my world?
Yes. I would say the stories that are really magnetic are the most authentic ones. So it's the ones where they are actually brave enough to really share. But it's a different format. It's on stage. It's not in a business context. But the other thing, there are techniques. For instance, everyone who gets on stage, I encourage them, and I actually insist, start with the hook. So instead of when you're starting to share a story, get up and say, the theme tonight is curiosity. Well, my take on this theme is that blah, blah, blah. No one cares. No one's listening. The reason that they're not listening, they haven't yet created an emotional connection with you. But if you can get on stage and go straight into your story, like, it was Monday morning, I woke up, it was an ordinary day until my phone rang. It was my boss. I knew it wouldn't be good news. My heart started pounding. I thought, oh my gosh, I think I'm losing my job today. And when I answered the call, my worst nightmare was realize I'd lost my job. Now, when you start a story like that, so that's what I call the hook. You start with the highest point of tension. Everyone is leaning in and listening from the minute you open your mouth. There's no fluffy, stuff, and, it's like, bam, straight in there. And then we've got a universal story structure that we follow. So you start with the hook and then you raise the stakes. And so you raise the tension. So what was at stake? What was at stake when all this was happening? And then you get to the tipping point. And the tipping point of any story is usually where there's a choice. Could have done this or could have gone this way or that way. And then you get to transformation. So that's, you've made your decision and you go through the transformation of whatever it is. And then there's a resolution, and that's kind of your parting message or the ends. So the storytellers who share on the Stories That Stir stage follow this structure. And it just has people leaning in and listening from the minute they open their mouth to the minute they close it. And if you actually watch, read, or listen to any good story, this is what I really encourage people to do, to just be aware, like, how does the story start? Like, just think about the latest streaming platform, the latest Netflix series that you might have binge watched. That first episode draws you into the hook, the challenge, and then the stakes are raised, and then there's a decision that needs to be made, and then they go on a journey, and then there's a thing that it ends, how it ends. So good stories follow this universal story structure, and that's how I teach people how to create an engaging story that people are really going to lean in and listen, and that it's going to be magnetic instead of ho-hum and you've lost me after the first 5 words.
Now, your events, which we'll talk about more with Stories That Stir, people are actually, as you said, standing up on stage and delivering a presentation that you have coached them on how to do that in a structure that works and is compelling. As business owners, perhaps that looks like delivering a webinar or speaking at an association, or it could be writing emails, or it could be doing social media. It could be any of those things. You, before you were doing what you do now, well, for many, many years, you ran a very successful PR agency. And before we transition back to the topic, if someone is going for PR, like, it kind of feels obvious that if there's a great story, the media is going to be more interested. But can you speak to how storytelling intersects with getting media attention? And it could be media, like general media, but it could also be social media.
Absolutely. There are so many parallels, and I just love showing what they are, because the media, the way the media behave and what they want to feature, parallels very similarly to how humans interact. I'll give you an example. So we worked with a lot of very successful business owners, but no entrepreneurial journalist is going to care about writing a story about how wonderful this business is, how they're going from strength to strength, they're making millions, and their life is just glorious. Why? No one wants to read that. One, it just makes us feel bad about ourselves. But two, it's boring. What's to learn? Where's the challenge? Where's the inspiration? So I knew I could get any of my clients mass media coverage if I could find the story. Like, give me the hook, give me the gold, exactly what I've been talking about now. And that hook always came with a bit of vulnerability. So doing exactly what I'm doing now, I would do a story mining session where I'd learn all about all their story, and we'd pick the one that they were prepared to share that was interesting and shared a little bit of vulnerability, but got people hooked in. And yeah, it's just so, and same with social media. You can get on there and say everything's amazing, wonderful, wonderful, or you can actually share your truth. You can share about how, that time that you were really nervous, maybe you're a presentation trainer and you became, the reason you're doing that is because the first time you presented, you were so scared, you fainted, and you never wanted that to happen again. You could about presenting, and now you've presented to thousands, you've helped thousands of people present. Just finding something in your story that links to your why, and usually that is a bit of vulnerability. And it's a complete parallel with the media, because that's exactly what they were looking for, because they knew, or that what they do look for, because they know that's what's going to get the attention of their audience. And that's all they want, obviously. That's what it's all about. So the media obviously know what they're doing in that. And that's why all of us should follow suit, because that they know what gets engagement. And in running my PR agency for 22 years, I've spent all that time helping people craft their story, find the bits that are going to get the journo interested, and the journo's interested because they know their audience will be interested. And then you usually share the vulnerability, but then you go on to talking about, and then it's led to this amazing business, and this is how you help people, and this is what you do, but it's starting with the hook.
With a hook. And I think that if we take the, traditional media out of the way and we think about our social media audience, we are similarly wanting them to engage. We want them to click, like, follow, go to our landing page, whatever it is. And so, we just don't have that middle person, if you like, that we are still want to be thinking about the hook, the story, the journey, where things went wrong, how we turned it around. And I think maintaining a level of, and look at me now with my Porsche, it's not that. It's still maintaining relatability. Would you agree?
Absolutely. Like, people want real nowadays more than ever, because nobody wants to go onto socials and feel crap because they're comparing themselves to everyone else. When they see someone that's being real and authentic and raw, they create that emotional connection with that person a lot more than just all the glossy posts about, how wonderful life is and how I can help you. I have another example, a beautiful, actually, she's a social media manager. She's got her own business, and she shared 2 posts with me that she did. So the first one was addressing a pain point, and we all know in marketing, you want to address a pain point. So her pain point was, want to stop the social media scroll, you've got to come in with a hook. And that post, it got about 100 views, like about 7, engagement things, hearts, whatever. No one interacted with her profile. So not the most successful post, but, it's necessary to put that in the mix. Her next post was her story about being bipolar. And this was a brick she's willing to put in her Lego building, because she feels it's very important to be authentic. And so it was a whole post about having bipolar. So if I wasn't bipolar, I often think about the things that I could have done, but now I realize it, so it was a whole gorgeous story. That, and now I'm here, and I'm, it ended up really positive in that story. She had, much more engagement, more views, more people interacting, and people reaching out to her wanting to talk about her business. So it actually works. It's just, I would say it's just having, well, firstly, doing some work where you can come up with a story that it's not terrifying to share, this story, and then having the courage to just show up and be you. And women are really good at this. So we need to use this. Like, women are good at being, I find in my experience, especially business women, by the time you go to running your own business, you've been through a lot of work on yourself, and you're probably quite self-aware. So the next step is sharing your magic. Don't bury your magic. Like, don't leave yourself unexpressed. And if you need motivation to share your magic, then just know it's going to help you get cut through in business. If that's not motivation, I don't know what is.
That's right. And it's going to end up in the bank.
Exactly. If you need that motivation, go for it. But yeah.
So you're great at putting the spotlight on people, but now I want to put the spotlight on you a little bit, and tell us what Stories That Stir is and the story behind that.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Okay, so I've worked in media, as I said, for over 2 decades, ran this PR agency, which was awesome. But about 15 years in, I turned 40, right on time, had an existential crisis, and realized it was time to explore other things. I wasn't ready to stop my business, but I just wanted to see, explore things that I was curious about. I ended up doing training in professional speaking, and curiosity led me to a stand-up comedy course, which was great. It was a lot of theory, but the course ended with us doing a comedy show, like a graduation show. I have never been so nervous in my whole entire life. For the month leading up to that show, my legs turned to jelly every time I thought about it, and I can't even tell you how much I did on that day. Anyway, I said to myself, if I enjoy this experience, I'll just keep going, and if not, I'll forget all about it and hope everyone does too, who's here tonight. Anyway, much to my amazement, people actually laughed, and people that I didn't pay to come that night. And I loved it, and I ended up on the stand-up circuit for 5 years, and I started sharing my story on different stages in different ways, storytelling events, professional speaking, and comedy. By the time COVID came around, I was feeling really burnt out of my business. I felt like the media landscape had changed. It was not feeling good anymore. And I felt like I had expanded as a person, but I was living a Groundhog's Day life, and I see myself, I'd start January knowing what my year would look like, and I just wanted it to be December already. Yeah. And I'm the sort of person who loves life, and I thought this is no way for me to live my life. So anyway, I was feeling very stuck in my business, and then COVID came around and kind of gave me the opportunity to reset, because within 2 weeks we lost 80% of our clients. But we had 6 employees, so we got JobKeeper, which was great, and we all sent home. So before I knew it, I was getting paid decent money to do a lot less work and time to reconnect to myself. So in that time, I restarted my meditation practice, and actually went for a walk looking at a flower instead of rushing and putting out fires on the phone. It's like, oh, wow, look at a flower. It's so pretty. And actually got headspace for the first time, I believe, 22 years. And then during Sydney's second lockdown, my husband and I went on a walk for the 10th time that day with our very tired dog. And I said to my husband, I really miss storytelling, I miss human connection, and I miss the stage. And he said, well, why don't we just start our own storytelling event? And we came up with a concept where it's a unique event concept where 6 people from all walks of life, and that was really important, share a 10-minute raw and personal story linked to a theme. And themes are always one big emotive word, like connection, transformation, courage, resilience. And the whole idea was to break down barriers, stir conversation, and inspire positive change. So to provide a platform where people could share their truth in a very safe space and have the audience members come in and feel less alone in their own life struggle and have empathy for what others are going through. So we put the first event in Feb 2022, and there was no reason for it other than me feeling excited about it, my husband, and just thinking, how hard can this be? And we put it on. I put all my energy out there to promote it. It was a sellout, and people said it was the best event they've ever been to. Now, I had lockdown on my side. We were all thirsty for human connection, and we'd created a space where there was deep human connection. Like the one thing that I can summarize about what happens in the room, love. It's love. Love between human beings, and people leave changed. They come with a certain energy. They connect. We struggle to get everyone out of the room at the end of the night. And for the storytellers, and this is what I had no idea was going to happen, but the storytellers benefit the most because they release this. When you are holding on to a story that's not expressed, you don't realize this, but it eats away at you. And it's what creates one of those bars that I was talking about at the beginning, one of those prison bars. But when you take the time to craft the story, and I'm there to help with that, learn it off by heart, which is a whole other process, and share it to an audience of mostly strangers who are leaning in and listening to your every word, that's a release. You release that story forever. You now own that story. And in owning that story, you get such a sense of empowerment that people have gone on to just all the good things happen in their life. You know, I had one woman, it was at our third event, I think. She was from East India, and she was born in a village where women had no rights. And, you know, everything was decided for her. And she's such a courageous woman that when she grew up, she left because she wanted to know what it was like to be a person that's not a sister, a daughter, a mother, a wife. And you know, she went through a lot of difficult times and until she kind of started thriving. Anyway, she shared this story. She stood in her power. And I met her 2 years later because I do stay in touch with a lot of our storytellers. And she said, Monica, I was reborn after that talk. Like, I felt like I was reborn. Like, and I was like, what? Like, so, and I hear this all the time. You know, I've got another friend, I asked her to speak, and I said, it's going to be healing for you. She's like, I don't need healing. Like, I'm good with that, but I will do it for you. Anyway, shares her story. She's like, oh my God, Monica, yes. That my ex-girlfriend, who wasn't in my life for 10 years, we've reconnected. And now like she said, I didn't realize I still needed healing from that.
Oh, such powerful work, And I can hear you, I can see you as we're recording this, and I know how much it lights you up. And so I really want to encourage you as you're listening to see where the next Stories That Stir is and get yourself along. And I also want to let people know about your masterclasses. So we're going to put all that information over on the show notes page. And I just love the passion. I worked with you when you had your PR company, and you're always so committed to your clients, especially the entrepreneurial ones. And so I'm so committed to supporting you in this business as it grows. And so you said you started in 2022?
Yeah, our first event was Feb 2022. By the end of that year, I'd closed the PR agency.
Right.
And since then, it's been a full-time
thing. And you've got an event coming up, can I say?
Yeah, yes.
Yeah, coming up at the Sydney Opera House. So we'll be sure to put those details on the show notes page as well. At Her Business, our tagline is do what you love every day. So I would love to know, Monica, I think I know the answer to this, but I would love to know what a day in your life looks like when you are doing what you love.
Okay. Well, I'm going to give two things. One's the evening, because my happiest time in the world is at a Stories That Stir event, emceeing the event and orchestrating the energy in the room and just seeing the love and feeling the love. It's feeling the love. So that's one. But the next one is doing my masterclasses. People come in with all kinds of emotions. They're scared, they're nervous, they're confused, and they're overwhelmed. They might be anywhere between 30 and 65, I think, is the oldest we've had. And they've got all this life experience. Like, how am I going to put any of this into a tight, compelling story that's going to attract people to my business? Like, what? So they come a bit like, I don't know what to expect, but I'm here and I'm here to play full out. And I have created a process that takes them through. And by the end of the day, they leave feeling, the main words they tell me, they feel like a clarity, empowered, confidence, cannot wait to share their story. And depending on, the release that they get, based on how much they've been squashing some of the story down, they feel like their life has changed. I've had, on Friday, I ran a masterclass, and the lady said, Monica, I didn't know your life could change in a day, but mine has changed today. I know I'm not going to die, with my stories left unexpressed within me. I mean, so I love that process. Like for me, it's pure joy. And because I've done it so often now, I trust the process, and I know that I'm going to get them to that place where they're proud to put on their LinkedIn profile a bit of themselves, and on their website and on their socials and in a networking event. And because what they actually come out of that masterclass with is a longer version, which they can use in a presentation, a medium version, which is perfect for LinkedIn and website and that sort of thing, socials, and a 60-second version, so that when they go to a networking event, instead of standing up and saying, "Oh, hi, I'm an accountant and I'll do your books," which is like, they give a version of their story in 60 seconds. Believe it or not, you can do that, and that's what they come out of the masterclass with.
Thank you so much for joining me. It's been a great conversation. We'll put the links in the show notes, and I will let you know where that link is a little later in this episode. Thank you, Monica.
Thank you. It's lovely chatting with you today.
I loved that interview, and I want to let you know that there is a selfish part of me doing this particular podcast with Monica. Yes, I love sharing all the goodness that she brought with you, but secretly, I just love to hear the passion that comes from the guests that we have here on the show. And Monica is such an incredible example of a woman business owner who is truly doing what she loves every day. And if you've listened to this show for even one episode, you'll know that our mantra is do what you love every day. And you can hear the passion in her voice as she talks about the connection that stories create. And you can tell how deeply she cares about the work that she does. And I just love that. And if you take anything away from this episode, I hope it's that you have a story to share too. And you have bits of gold inside you that are waiting to be shown to the world that will free you from your own prison, as she talked about. You just have to be courageous enough to start to share them. And as I said right at the top of the show, this used to scare the heck out of me. And I'm still easing into it, but I feel encouraged when I see the results that I get when I share my stories. And so I understand how hard it can be. And anytime I have a speaking event, which I did just the other day, or anytime I set up a camera to film something vulnerable, I get that jolt of fear and the doubt and the imposter syndrome and no one wants to hear this thoughts all pop up. But people do want to hear from you. And your story is worth being told. And storytelling is such an incredible tool that you can use in your business to make the connection with your ideal client that much stronger. When people can see themselves in you, they don't have to have had the exact experience, but they can relate, it changes everything. So I have put all of Monica's information in the show notes of this episode. I encourage you to check out where your nearest Stories That Stir event is and show up. And I'm also putting a link to her next Magnetic Brand Storytelling Workshop. Now, her workshop is for business owners who want to attract dream clients, inspire their teams, open doors by daring to show up as their most authentic self through telling stories. And she only ever takes a handful of people in these workshops, so I encourage you to go ahead and book in. And I'll give you the details for where you'll find the link in just a moment. And I have heard about the phenomenal transformations that people get when they do this workshop. And so I encourage you to check it out now. And that link is over in the show notes, which is at herbusiness.com/321. Now, another one of my favourite storytellers is the wonderful Valerie Khoo of the Australian Writers' Centre. If you've ever heard Valerie speak, and if you haven't listened to the episode we did just a couple of episodes ago, I want you to check it out. It's called... The episode's called What If You Followed That Hunch? The Power of Pursuing Curiosity in Business. And it was a very popular episode. And one of our listeners, a longtime member of her business, Kate Tribe, listened. And she said, listen to this today while stacking firewood. I've been thinking about the connection of doing something new to spark ideas and new directions. And she said, I enjoyed your connection from a TV show to a new course. In the episode, Valerie tells a story how watching a reality TV show inspired a course that is helping first responders and veterans deal with trauma. Quite an incredible episode. I'll put a link to that in the show notes for you as well. And Kate Tribe, to give her a little shout out and to say thank you for giving us some feedback on the podcast. She creates hand-embroidered contemporary artwork, mainly using cross-stitch as her medium, and she draws inspiration from nature and travel and urban landscapes, and I'll put a link to her shop in the show notes as well. Now, if you enjoyed this episode, we would love it if you would leave us a rating or review on Apple Podcasts, or you can shoot me a direct message over on our Instagram account, and you'll find us at @herbusiness on Instagram. So once again, the show notes, the links to Monica's Stories That Stir and to her workshop are over at herbusiness.com/321. And you'll also find a summary of today's episode and links to other resources that we have discussed. Now, if you are new to the show, welcome. Go ahead and hit subscribe or follow wherever you are listening, and join us here on the next episode for more inspiring stories and lessons from successful female business owners. See you next week, right here on the Her Business Podcast. Bye for now.